All right, y'all. Let's keep grammar rolling in writing workshop with apostrophes here. I'm hoping you find apostrophes pretty simple. It's a punctuation mark that you've been using for years now. But kind of the point with learning all these punctuation marks so early in the semester is to try to rule out just any sort of bad habits that we still might have regarding grammar and punctuation before we move on to some more complex stuff. Um, just later on in the semester. The idea is to get lots of practice now, make sure that we can kind of hammer out some of the things that we're still not quite getting right from English 1 and English 2 before you guys are a little more comfortable learning new concepts too. I'm hoping you're finding that English grammar is maybe not as difficult as maybe we would assume, but by learning those most basic rules and building on those and just learning some of the more complex applications too, I'm hoping you're finding that grammar is actually a pretty doable thing. One of my favorite quotes, I should say, is that practice makes permanent. So as we practice even really simple grammatical rules, the idea is to make them permanent in our writing, which makes us better writers through that process of practice, through the writing process too. Let's look at apostrophes here. So as you note, just as please watch this video, you're watching it now for notes on apostrophe usage, then complete the practice activity below the notes. In one of our last activities, I did dock some points from some of you who didn't actually take notes on the note sheets as well. I know that seems like a silly step, but for the sake of being thorough and for the sake of maximizing what you know about this information, I am going to ask that you follow along in notes. Again, your document is up here, so follow along and complete that as I go through mine as well. I'll get you started on the practice activity below as well. There we go. So apostrophes. I'm hoping once again that this is a punctuation mark you know well. Let's do it. So first of all, I'm hoping that you can fill in some of these blanks on your own. I'm sure you know some of the information about apostrophes already, but it's good to review. First of all, we know that one use of the apostrophe is to create blank or combinations of words. Those are contractions. So contractions are combinations of words. Things like didn't, shouldn't, couldn't, wouldn't, we are, right? So combinations of words that you bring together using an apostrophe. You guys should know that contractions are considered informal in most writing. So as we're writing things like essays, even journal entries, I'd like you to try to practice formal writing here and avoid contractions as much as possible, but you should know how to form them. For example, I will buy the piñata becomes I'll buy the piñata. Notice that on the left, we get something a little more formal, something you might expect to see in writing. I'll buy the piñata is something that's a little more familiar for us in conversation. I am more in the camp that says that conversational English is conversational English and it's more everything goes. In writing, as we focus on that in writing workshop, we want to practice being as formal as possible. Notice the your turn sentence. We were not going to buy popcorn because we did not want to spend money. That sounds like a weird sentence to say out loud. I do want to see if you know how to fix this one on your own. I'll discuss the answers in just a moment here too. So I hope you're able to fix this in your notes. Let's look at it here. So there's actually two ways to do this. Some people do we are not. I would change were not to weren't. Weren't apostrophe N apostrophe T. We weren't going to buy popcorn because we didn't instead of did not. Didn't want to spend money. That sounds like a much flowier sentence, right? We weren't going to buy popcorn because we didn't want to spend money. One thing I want to note here is that there are two words that we might be tempted to use here in speech that are absolutely not acceptable in writing because they're slang. They are gonna and wanna. That is how we speak, but notice that even Microsoft Word notes that they are not words. I wonder if it suggests. Yep, it makes a suggestion. Change it back to the formal going to and want to. The other major rule with apostrophes, and I'm sure you know this as well, is that we use apostrophes to show possession in writing. This is the bigger use of apostrophes in our language, possession. That's why I wanted you to reflect on our prized possession in today's journal entry. I'm sure you know some of the basics of possession as well. For singular nouns, we add. I put this line right here to show that it comes at the end of a word, apostrophe S for singular nouns. For plural nouns, the apostrophe goes after the S. Note this, if the plural noun does not end in S, we know that most noun plurals in English end in S, words like dogs and cats and horses and cows. But plural nouns that don't end in S, like children or women or geese, Note that we would just use the same method as singular nouns. Children's Hospital of Wisconsin. Children is plural. It's talking about tens, or it's talking about dozens, hundreds, thousands of children, right? Millions of children, maybe, in our immediate area, in our vicinity. But notice that children is plural. It still takes an apostrophe s to show possession. A couple of more obscure rules with possession here before we practice this. For common nouns ending in s, we add an extra s. So if I said something like the class's teacher was late, it would be CLASS apostrophe s. I know that looks weird, but that is what we need to do to show possession. For proper nouns ending in s, so specific people, places, things, ideas, you do not need that extra s. So for instance, the class's textbook, CLASS apostrophe s. Jesus, S apostrophe, disciples. Now Jesus is singular, so you would think that it's JESUS apostrophe S, but within how our language is structured, it is S apostrophe for proper nouns ending in S. Jesus, disciples. And that's how we talk too. Couple of never notes right here. There are some situations where people think that they're using apostrophes correctly, but they are errors. One is using an apostrophe to make nouns or names plural. Just the S will do. So it's for dogs. I'm going to write a sentence here and then delete it. If I said something like the dogs chewed on their bones, right? Some people are tempted to do something like this. The dogs chewed on their bones. But here, notice that we're not using dogs possessively here. We just want it to be plural. Again, noun plurals, just an S, no apostrophe. If it was a possessive plural, then it would be S apostrophe. The dogs, puppies, chewed on their bones. These are the puppies of the dogs, right? So you just got to be careful. Do not use an apostrophe to form noun plurals. Just the S will do. There we go. Another never note, never use an apostrophe for possessive pronouns. Now this is where it gets weird, right? You would think that the word like theirs would be R apostrophe S, right? But that is not a word at all, right? I would say something like, give that, I don't know, give that remote back. It is, so notice the contraction right there. IT apostrophe S is it is, ITS is possessive. It's theirs, period. Notice that there's no apostrophe in theirs. Again, never use apostrophes for possessive pronouns, his, her, hers. It's really only tricky when it comes to things like his, hers, theirs, ours. No apostrophes in those. It's as well. IT apostrophe S is it is, not possessive ITS. So just be careful with those as well. So a couple of examples for possession. The frog's tummy, apostrophe S, so one frog, tummy of the frog, was empty. So he ate all the turtle's food. Notice here that turtles is S apostrophe, so we're talking about the food that belongs to numerous turtles. Could be 2 turtles, could be 200 turtles, could be 200,000 turtles. Doesn't matter. It is S apostrophe for plural. Notice another example too. Mr. Jones, S apostrophe, proper noun ending in S. Rage burned due to the class's behavior. CLASS apostrophe S right there. For a common noun ending in S, it takes that additional apostrophe S. I know that's a lot of rules to take in at once, so I want you to have this as a resource you can use in front of you. Take a look at those your turn sentences, and then we'll look at those together too. Feel free to pause the video if you need. All right, and I hope you are noticing right here that even Microsoft Word is telling me that cat should be apostrophe S right here. A cat means that it's singular. Singular possessives are apostrophe S. I'm also really hoping that you didn't get fooled by its right here. If I were to add the apostrophe right here, it would say the dog slept on it is bed while it dreamed of the cat's demise. That does not work, so be careful with homophones. Once again, possessive pronouns never take apostrophes. They just stay as their own. The other one, the boys' names all started with R, the women's names all started with Z. Again, Microsoft Word is telling me that women's is wrong. It's going to be apostrophe S just because women is a plural noun that does not end in S. That's an exception to the rule, so it takes the same rule as singular, apostrophe S. Boys' names. Now we're talking about numerous names for numerous boys. This one's going to be S apostrophe. and that brought it on to another line. Oops. But S apostrophe for plural noun that ends in S. S apostrophe names, multiple names for multiple boys. Good. There is one more rule, and this may be new for you, just because this is the trickiest rule that we get when it comes to apostrophes. Possession does get a little bit tricky when you have multiple possessive nouns. Multiple. I'll show you an example of that in a moment. But here's the rule. If the multiple nouns possess the same object, only the last noun receives the apostrophe S. Only the last one, if they possess the same object. If the multiple nouns all possess different objects or their own objects, then each noun receives an apostrophe S. Here's how it works. So let's imagine Jake, James, and John right here, right? 3 boys, they're all brothers, right? The sentence says, Jake, James, and John's mama is a wonderful, wise woman. Now notice we've got multiple nouns. They're all possessive. So Jake's mama, James's mama, John's mama. But since they're all the same object, it's the same thing that they're possessing here. It's all their mama. Notice that only the last noun receives that apostrophe S. She is the mama of Jake, James, and John all together, right? In that case, we just need the apostrophe S on the last noun because they all collectively possess that same object anyway. It's all their mama, same mama. But let's say we're talking about multiple things that they're in possession of. Now, I'm not saying that people are possessions. That's a weird thing to look at. But grammatically speaking, what are they possessing in this sentence? Now we've got multiple girlfriends, right? It would be weird if they all have the same girlfriend. They each have their own girlfriend. So notice the rule. Multiple nouns all possess different objects. Object I'm talking about grammatically here, not that women are objects. Each noun receives that apostrophe S. Jake's girlfriend. James's, notice once again, no extra S there, girlfriend. John's girlfriend. Altogether, Jake's, James, and John's girlfriends are lovely. So again, plural. It takes a plural verb, are in this case. But we also need to have that extra apostrophe S on each noun because they each are in possession of their own thing in this sentence. Notice that your turn. Now on this one, you'll need to actually add S's and apostrophes, so take your time on this one. The sentence says, Jack and Jill Hill stands between Jack and Jill houses. Take a moment here, see if you can solve this one before I discuss it. Feel free to pause. All right. Now, one thing I forgot to mention with this sentence, this might actually sound like something that comes up in conversation, because when we are speaking English, when we're speaking conversationally, sometimes we drop possessive S's entirely, right? We might say something like, my mama hair looked great today, right? Notice that I dropped that apostrophe S. That is part of conversational English. It's not formal for writing. So we can't just drop possessive apostrophe S's in writing. Got to make sure that we include them. Notice here, Jack and Jill Hill. Now this is going back to the nursery rhyme. Jack and Jill went up the hill. There's one hill for both of these young children, right? So this one, we got to follow the first rule. Same object, only the last one, Jill, receives the apostrophe S. Jack and Jill's hill, the hill for both of them, stands between Jack and Jill houses. Now wait a second. Now we've got multiple different objects for each noun here. This one's going to go with the second rule. Jack's and Jill's houses. So Jack and Jill's hill stands between Jack's and Jill's houses. I know it might sound kind of strange because that is a bit more of a complex and obscure rule, but you should know how to work through that in writing should you ever get to that situation. I could note here as well that another solution, if there's ever going to be confusion with apostrophes and joint ownership and different ownership, one thing you can do is rewrite the sentence, right? Jack and Jill's hill stands between, I could say, Jack's house and Jill's house. Just to clarify that they do have separate houses, it is possible to rewrite that section. Once again, notice that I'm using then singular apostrophe S for each of them to clarify that it's Jack's house and that his house is separate from Jill's house. You do have a practice activity. The following paragraph has 10 punctuation errors altogether. 3 of them are comma splices that need semicolons, so those ones should be pretty simple to spot. There are 2 missing colons, looking back at last week. In this paragraph, just 2 that you need to pop in there, and 5 missing apostrophes. Add the missing punctuation marks as you read. I'll read this one out loud. Maybe that'll help you spot where you need punctuation in this paragraph. Let's take a look at it. In a recent study by the Texas Academy of Super Cool Technology, TASTE, Researchers have discovered that brownies are America's favorite dessert. A survey of 10,000 people showed that brownies beat out their three main competitors: cookies, cake, and pie. Researchers don't understand this result. They estimated that cookies would win by a landslide. In order to verify the experiment, they'll check the study's results with other studies across the nation. UW-Whitewater has done a similar study on cake mixes. Yale University is currently researching break-and-bake cookie dough. Until these studies are finished, taste is at a standstill. We are left with brownie's new title, Best Dessert in America. Take your time. Feel free to look back at earlier notes. If you need help with things like semicolons and colons, please note, once again, there's only three semicolons that need to be added to this paragraph. They will replace commas and comma splices. There are 2 missing colons that need to be popped in where they're needed. And there are 5 missing apostrophes that need to be popped into this paragraph as well. Have fun and take your time on this. As I have been doing with other grammar practices, I will highlight errors that still exist in this paragraph after you're done, if they're there.